Cannot
busy.
be bothered.
Thinking real estate.
Can't be bothered.
You know, these people really miss the best part of the show is before we go on the air. No, it's not the best show part's when we're on the air.
You were on JTV yesterday.
I was on JTV. You're pointing to something.
Well, I'm pointing to that commercial I just played.
Oh, okay.
So, if
How did
people-
Bart treat you?
Wait, hold on. Before we get into that, I think that people will want to know how to get a hold of us today.
Oh, God, I don't know.
787-3397, or they can email
Can't you give
me.
them the wrong number?
I can.
That's a good idea.
787-3397.
Any landlords out there?
Or they can email me at mark@thinkingrealestate.com.
There you go. I'm glad you're giving them your email.
Have you seen this can that I have here?
Yeah.
It's a can of worms that I'm going to open.
So what was your question? How did Bart treat me?
How did Bart treat you?
Bart has a problem with his cameras.
He does?
He does. It's either his cameras or that cake,
Are they
cake I'm eating.
Are they over focused?
I got
At
a
least
call.
it's not an HD
That would be awful.
for everybody else.
No, it's
Right,
it's
exactly.
WD. Wide definition.
Exactly.
You guys are in trouble now.
Yeah, Bart's
You're not
ca-
supposed to agree with me. You're
Bart's
supposed to
cameras
say,
can bite you.
wow.
Yeah.
So
That's why I don't go on. We have a face for radio here.
I have a friend who said he doesn't go on because he says the wrong word too often.
That would be me too.
Yeah, I know. And Bart doesn't have a
That was-
time delay, so he can't bleep it.
That was the other thing that I told a story before we got on air about my niece calling me with asking about some hints about going on air because she was going to be on TV yesterday. And the other thing I said is, actually it was the first thing I said is, don't cuss. That was number one.
That will offend people.
Yeah.
So Jackie does a great job. Our cameras, I don't think we have any problems with ours. I think Bart ought to. We'll have to. I'll
think
have to
it
call him.
It looks steady.
It's probably got that iPad distortion.
All right, then.
So,
Hey, I saw you at the chili festival.
Yes, I even gave you a hug, and
Yeah.
you seem like you're not used to getting hugs.
What do you mean?
I don't know. You just don't. You must not get hugs.
Oh.
That's not Kleenex. He works so hard he doesn't have time to get out of the office.
wow.
And if people want to know what we're talking about, they'd have to go to the website.
You'll have to watch this.
ThinkingRealestate.com.
So this will be on the internet today?
Yeah, exactly.
I might watch it. Just to see Mark catch that roll of toilet paper I just threw.
Anyhow, yeah. So you don't seem like you're used to getting hugs or something.
Not in public.
I think you frightened him.
Oh.
I think you frightened him.
Yeah, I think you did.
The chili cook-off was fun.
Was it?
And you know what? Thank God for Phil Tripp.
Oh, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
a good guy.
What doesn't he sponsor?
I don't know. I'm going to call him on
Kudos
Friday,
to
so I
him.
hope he hasn't limited his sponsorships yet.
Well, there you go. I'm sure he'll say yes.
I don't know till I ask him.
Anyway,
Should we prepare him here?
No.
Phil.
Well,
if
I'm
you
going to
see
help
her
the
number
Downtown
come up-
Development Authority find sponsors for their spring planting.
Oh.
Yeah, it's help beautify our downtown. So I'm working on that with
what-
Jonathan Green on Friday.
What does that entail?
A donation.
Donation of
Yeah, and I got
cash?
yeah, that would be
Okay.
preferable. And I got Tim Clark of Hanover Gardens donating his time to help tell them what to do that's practical and easy to maintain, and hopefully will come up year after year, so it will minimize their costs. So,
So how was that meeting Tuesday?
So how was your week?
it was a pretty
There's that
stressful
can
week.
of worms.
There it is. You should put that back in your pocket.
Yeah. So
Well,
tell me, let's talk about this landlord registry, because from a real estate standpoint, it's going to affect my job and it's going to affect my clients.
okay, so why do you think it's going to affect your job? And then I'll try
Well,
to
it
answer
may not. It'll affect it just because of logistics, and people are going to be asking me to explain to them what this means.
Okay.
And I don't know what it means, so tell
Right.
me. Talk
Well,
to me.
what realtors should be looking out for, whether this registry is in place or not, and it is approved, so it will be in place in 30 days. They should be, when you're selling a house, whether it's in the city of Jackson or Leone Township or Summit Township, I don't care where it is, you need to call the building officials to make sure there's no code violations on that house or no condemnation. So as a
As
realtor,
a rental, if it
no, period.
any house.
Any house. Let's say it's a.
I
Let's say
don't
it's
know
a
about that. Do you think so?
Oh yeah, if it's a foreclosure.
So you're going to do that?
Well, it's just a phone call.
Okay.
Look at him looking at me. You know, the hardest
Speaking of
part.
can of worms,
No, seriously, if it's a foreclosure and it was a residential home, the municipality may have gone out there and condemned that house because of its condition. Or, I mean, I sold a house on Northeast Ave, and right after we closed, they condemned the porch. So
no, they condemned the house.
they condemned the house, but it should have been the porch, and they
Acknowledged
They
that.
acknowledged that. So, and that's what they meant. But it's as a realtor, if you're going to represent a buyer, you need to make the phone calls and find out. In this economy, with
Okay,
the
so
state of
so
homes,
say that again. If as a buyer's agent, if I have someone buying a foreclosed home or any home,
any home.
I should make a call to the municipality, which is the authority in charge of that home, and find out if there are code violations.
That's correct.
And
So,
I mean, there could even
so
be
if it was out here, you would call who at Summit Township?
you would Summit Township.
the building inspector,
yeah.
or the building inspector.
From Summit Township.
Correct. Yep.
Give them the address.
Or the other thing, if you
I don't know about that. I just don't know.
why? If you want your buyer to close on a piece of property and then find out that there's violations and they can't.
No, but
They-
on the other hand, as a real estate agent, there is a limit to what I should be responsible for. And I can tell the buyer to do that, but do
Well,
I
you-
want to be responsible for
Well,
that?
it depends on.
Yeah.
It's going to depend on your policy, but you need to at least inform your buyer to do that.
Any home.
I would say any home.
You're going to do that.
Let's say there's just a residential home and they have a pile of brush in the backyard and the city has cited them for that brush. That brush is going to have to go away. And you wouldn't think of that. I wouldn't think of it. I wouldn't have thought about it until I got into city government.
Well,
They're
here's-
going to expect that pile of brush to be gone at
Here's my
some point, no
concern
matter
about
who owns
here's my
that.
concern about that. I understand and I agree with you on having a buyer as informed as possible, and that could include that. But my take on the municipalities is that they are reactionary, not proactive. And if I am calling them, asking them, are there any code violations, is that going to make a bell go off in someone's head?
Well, in the city, you're going to talk to
I know, but what?
probably
Tell me about
Sheila,
the
and
city.
Sheila's going to look it up, and she'll
That's all
say,
she's gonna do.
Yeah, she's not going to, tell Frank Donovan to go look at this house
They're-
because
they're
it's
too-
being sold.
They're too busy anyway.
Yeah,
aren't
they're
they?
busy. I mean, I just sold a house at 209 3rd Street, and I simply called to see if there were any violations. And that house had sat empty 20 months or so. So
Well,
I think it's important.
Let's go back to the fee. What?
Let's go back to the rental registry and
Nice
actually
segue
the
back.
ordinance. It's called an ordinance. It's not called a fee.
Oh,
The fee is a part of the ordinance.
okay. Well, let's go to the fee part of the ordinance.
So there are three parts of the ordinance. There's the rental registry, there's an update of the housing code, and there's the fee.
Okay.
So
Can you explain the fee?
can we start at the beginning?
Yes.
Because the fee would be the last part as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
The fee is, in my mind, and I'm, this is just personal because I'm not a landlord in the city, and it doesn't affect me personally, but that's the least part of this whole thing to me.
Right. It's only
incidental.
$15 a year, right?
$30.
I'll explain that.
Okay, go ahead.
How's that?
Yeah.
Because that
Speak to us.
speak to you. So first, let's talk about the rental registry. The rental registry is if you own a non-owner occupied home that's going to be rented, residential home, it's going to be rented. You need to register that property. The registration is going to give us contact information. The misnomer is that everybody thinks the city or the municipality already has contact information because we send out tax bills, but we only have addresses. We do not have phone numbers or emails or ways to contact. And I do think that this will give the city a chance to make a phone call as opposed to send a threatening letter or, I think it will help build better communication.
Okay.
Okay? And that by doing that will eliminate expenses to the city and to the landlord.
Okay.
Second part is updating the housing code, the second part. So they took into consideration, they met with lots and lots of landlords, lots of landlords. So they took the concerns of the landlords and weaved them into the housing code along with updating the housing code. It hadn't been updated since the 90s. And of course it has changed, so now it better matches the state. And then the last part is the fee.
So this is partially to bring into compliance what the state is doing?
Well, the state
Honestly,
has a
yeah.
housing and building code. And at a minimum, you have to enforce the state's level of housing and building code. You can make it more difficult, but you can't make it more lenient, from what I
And
understand.
how many other municipalities do this? Do you know?
A rental registry
Yes.
or a housing code.
I'm sure that they all do housing.
They all
codes.
have housing codes. There's several. When I Googled it, there were lots.
Well,
And
let me
I will
Google
tell
it.
you that our fee for the rental registry is probably the second lowest that I could find. So the fee, the rental of your house is $30 per unit, or rental of your non-owner occupied unit is $30 per structure and $10 per unit, residential unit within that structure. So I have a 3-unit building.
And that's for 2 years, right?
For 2 years, yep.
Okay.
So I have a 3-unit building on Southwest Avenue. One of the units is commercial, office space, and 2 are
And
residential.
will the commercial office space
The- It will not be
This
part
is
of it.
strictly residential.
Strictly
So that will
residential,
cost $50.
$50
Okay.
every
For 2
2
years.
years. So it's $25 a year for that
Okay.
property. The one next door that I have is a 2-unit. That one is both residential, so that one will be $50. Okay?
Yep.
The one
How
I
about your
have,
6-unit on
that one's going to
3rd
be
in Washington
$90.
for 2 years?
Okay. Are you taking calls?
Yes.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for taking my call. Who is in charge of enforcing these ordinances?
That would be the Community Development Department of the city.
Okay, because I had an issue with a landlord tenant in Clark Lake, and I had to go to court and talk to a judge to enforce some code, health violations, and they basically just didn't do anything. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to enforce anything if they're not going to
Well, those
do
are
anything.
we're talking your situation is totally different than what we're talking about. And if Columbia Township had a rental registration, what happened to you may or may not have been
Well,
an
no,
issue.
he's talking about a health code.
But
So
that would have
they-
been Columbia Township or the county of Jackson.
Well, that
would
would
not
be-
have been the city. That would have nothing to do with the city.
Are you saying-
Right, but he's saying in general. But every municipality has I would
A building
assume
code.
has a building and housing code.
Sure.
So all he needs, they just don't have to register their properties. So putting the registration aside, his concern, are you the tenant or are you the landlord?
I was the tenant, and
Okay.
the landlord said that the trailer was winterized, and the trailer was so old and outdated, there was hardly any insulation, and my kids missed 50% of school because of headaches and being sick. And we took them to court, and they basically didn't do anything. I mean, I had all the proof and everything, and
Right.
basically they didn't do anything. I mean, if you're truly trying to enforce any kind of code or anything, the only thing I could have done was have the Department of Energy, Detroit Department of Energy, whatever that gas company, they could have come out and shut down and red tagged the furnace.
Well, I would first send you to first of all, you might want to get a hold of an attorney, and there
That's
are
what he
some.
did.
Did
I mean,
you?
this is old news. This already
Right,
happened.
this is old news.
Okay. All right. Well, I would have steered you to an attorney and have you look at the building code to see what the minimum standards are. So every municipality has housing codes.
Right.
And my
I
guess,
was aware of that.
Yeah.
my guess is that would have been a township or county thing, and that it sounds like that would have been condemnable, and just
Yeah,
based
I
on
mean-
what you're telling us. You shouldn't have been living.
Outdated. It was an old oil gas furnace, and he should have never even got his rental property rented.
Right.
You know, the township just let him do whatever he wanted to do, and it was just
Well, that kind of.
it's really kind of unbiased. You know, how is he going to enforce any kind of laws when they don't do it?
Well, that goes back to my comment earlier about the municipalities being reactionary and not proactive.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the beauties of the rental registry is that
It
the
takes
city
that out
will
of
city will require the township may not have even known that landlord was renting that property, so they didn't know enough to do a certificate of compliance inspection.
Right.
So that will give us the opportunity to have the contact information.
Hey, are you taking calls? Good morning.
We've asked that before.
Hi, I am a landlord, and I do have many concerns about it. But I guess my biggest concern is I think we're already overwhelming a department in the city government that is completely overwhelmed, which is that community development program. I filed a complaint back in November about my next door neighbor. It's not a rental property, thank God, but they have 29 cats and one dog.
Oh, my God.
In the city of Jackson. The lady that owns the house invited me in for something, and I went in for something, and the house is falling down upon itself inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
She opened up the cupboard. 4 cats came running out of the cupboard. She can't even open up her refrigerator because the cats climb into the refrigerator. 29 cats. She doesn't want them. No agency will take them. She asked me to file a complaint with the city, so I did. I filed 3 complaints. Nothing has happened. I'm looking out my window right now, and I can count, I think when I was on hold, I counted 17 cats in the window. They have 1 dog, 17 cats that I could count. Who knows how many are in the cupboard or the refrigerator at this point.
Email me your information and the address, and I will follow up on that. My email is Laura, Laura, at 780-3800.com.
Well, I did call the city this morning, and of course nobody has a copy of the complaint that I filed, the 3 complaints that I filed back in November. So
Okay, I will follow up. Okay?
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
See? Go ahead. Speak.
Meow.
Wow. I don't know. Okay, there looks like another question coming.
Good morning.
Hi, I was calling there about the cat lady problem.
Yeah.
Do you want them?
And what you can probably do is just get a trap or find somebody that has a trap and trap them individually and take them out there on Spring Arbor Road there to the animal shelter and just tell them they're feral cats and they have to take them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. You have a question?
Yeah, I do. I think the cat caller raises a good issue, and I have a couple of my neighborhoods where you've got owner-occupied people who have homes that are just dilapidated on the outside, and we try to talk to the city about it. They say, well, they're not a rented property, but these people have kids and they're worried about the safety of the kids. And is the city planning to do anything with homes that are owner-occupied? I know we're getting tough on landlords, but that's really my question.
Right. Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, and I think you can. I mean, I know I have. I've seen. We can't have. We can't have rubbish sitting around and things like that. So you certainly can complain. And as a realtor, I have complained about neighbors' homes because it directly affects the value of the house being sold.
Well, and I also think that Pat Birch, who's the Community Development Director and Assistant City Manager, has really committed himself to bringing his department up to date. And that includes committing to this registry. So if the registry continues, which I'm assuming it will, they will inspect the houses. And I'm sure that they will be proactive.
Yeah, and we have to remember that over the last several months, they've been accumulating data. The data accumulation is pretty much in hand, and so they can focus more on taking care of these complaints. So,
And of course, the new regime is really just getting into.
Right.
It's been, what, a year? A little over a year?
yeah, May
Yeah.
was when Pat started and Larry started in June, And I will say the previous city council did a nice job of hiring those guys. And people may not like what we're doing, what the city is doing, but we gotta start somewhere, and it's not just targeted
And
for
when you have
landlords.
51% of the city of Jackson being non-owner occupied, it's important.
It is important, and they're gonna come up with some other programs. So unfortunately, it's not just the landlords.
You know we're out of time.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Summit Township, 3836 Lenlow,
Yep.
off of Stonewall, 149.7, great house.
Call this number.
780-3800.